This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
Tonight we have 4 new films to review. We're going to kick off with The Twin. Then we have Painted in Blood, Shot in the Dark, and we're going to round off with The Unburied. Our short shot this week is The River, and we're going to wind up with our DTV throwback, John Carpenter presents Vampires, Los Muertos. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is The Twin. A grieving mother has to confront the unbearable truth about her surviving twin son. So this is the latest film to be released from Shudder onto sort of through Acorn onto DVD. Steve, it's Finnish, a Finnish production set in Finland, although shot in English. Also seems to be set in the 70s, I believe.
And shot in Estonia.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, according to something. Yeah.
Interesting. So not even shot in Finland.
No,
Maybe it's the wrong kind of.
I presume it's just Finnish money.
Yeah, interesting. Unfortunately, this is exactly the sort of horror film I hate. With a vengeance.
Yeah.
Any films about kids, horror films about kids, I just do not get on with very few exceptions. There are some nice ideas here. It's a folk horror film. It delves into a bit of sort of Finnish folklore, that sort of thing, which is nice. But at the center of it is this horrible, horrible story about 2 little bratty kids. That's I can't not focus on that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How did you get on with this one?
Yeah. It's frustrating, really. It's the big twist is slightly ridiculous in a way. Because I think it's one of them, if you watch it back, will it work, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like The Sixth Sense, you can watch that back, and it does work.
I think there are moments.
I think that's what I mean.
Like with the photographs, when she gets the photographs developed, that's a big clue, sort of thing.
Yeah, true. But like the bits, I don't know, at the doctors or on that weird swingy thing, that.
Oh yeah.
The
marriage swing.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Those wacky Finnish people, yeah.
And it just gives it, and the ending as well gives it that. I don't want to spoil.
It's that bittersweet moment again. It's like so nothing's resolved then at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we're back to square one.
And someone's getting away with something. Oh, I presume they've gotten away with something. I don't, can't say.
Exactly. Yeah. It just seems to be brushed under the carpet, sort of thing.
Yeah. And again, you've got kind of like a supposed supernatural element, which is just poo-pooed and got rid of, swept on the carpet, forgotten about. It's not even remotely supernatural, really.
It's just bizarre. It's very bizarre that all these people are sort of like buying into this particular situation, and acting just so bloody weird all the way through the film. It's one of these films. I mean, they deliberately set it in the 70s or earlier, maybe.
Yeah, I wasn't sure when it was set because it does open with that very deliberate shot with the twin towers in the background, and I was thinking, it's pre 9/11, but I couldn't quite work out how pre.
Okay,
because
some
of the stuff looks really old.
Put it this way: if this woman had a mobile phone, a modern phone, this film would have been over in seconds.
Yeah.
As soon as she took a photograph of her kids,
yeah,
it would have been all over, or she'd been querying stuff. So
we're spoiler free though, obviously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not saying what, but yeah. I mean, how about you, Rich? I mean, it is atmospheric. There are some sort of interesting elements to it, but overall, for me, as I was saying to Steve, it's it's kids in horror movies. They don't belong for me.
Like, it does pull in a lot of other stuff we've seen before. So we've got the there's the grief horror kind of stuff, very Don't Look Now. We've got related to that, the maternal horror of like something like Rosemary's Baby, definitely going on, and a little bit of The Omen, well, countless others really.
The kid did remind me of Damien.
He does,
towards the end. It's got that sort of.
But you've also got this going to a strange place with strange locals and stuff kind of thing happening, which is, say, in this case it's Finland, but it brings to mind like the Wicker Man as a good example. But even like more
Village
recently,
in the Woods, all that sort of stuff.
That was exactly the one I was going to say. So more recently, we've had the Village in the Woods and some other examples, and say that otherworldly place in this case is rural Finland. Which it just seems so random. They say, we're relocating, we're moving somewhere. Where are you going? And then it cuts to a shot, and they just put this title card up saying Finland. That just sort of seemed a bit. That was just a bit random. I don't know if they could have done that a bit better. But
so
the Finnish element, the Finnish component is not really, they don't make the most of it. If you see what I mean.
Everyone
this is quite
English.
common. Yeah, I mean, you got the people. The locals, I think one of them actually speaks, but everyone else is silent, and it's kind of you do the otherworldly kind of thing, but it's also apart from that the wedding swing thing that you guys were talking about earlier, there's not a lot that's Finnish about the film. I would say it's kind of more. It's more to do with, let's take a couple of people who are white Americans. I think that's they are white Americans in this. I don't know if the actors actually aren't. I don't think. I mean, the guy.
No, Teresa Palmer plays Rachel. I think she's well known for another series.
But is she Australian? I've got a feeling she's Australian.
Sure.
But the guy is like Scottish.
She is.
Yeah.
Right, she's Australian.
Yeah, and the guy playing her husband's Scottish, I think. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's all formulaic filmmaking kind of stuff.
And it's supposed to be his hometown. That's where they go back to.
That's why they go back there and stuff. And then the film, as you were saying, so the film spends a lot of time developing a thing and then doing a whole pulling the rug out from under you. Now, I would have much preferred if the film ended at the beach. There's a big climactic moment, and then following that, there's like a really long epilogue with a very long exposition speech, and all this other stuff. And I just think it just sort of invalidated most of what we'd seen. And I was thinking, does it make sense, and how does that fit in and stuff? And then I watched the behind the scenes, and they start to describe what the film is actually, because they actually almost give it away in the making of what's actually happening.
Yeah, and, you're not meant to watch that until after you've seen the film.
Yeah.
Well, this is like, but this was like made for like pre-promotion. You could tell it was a pre-promoting, interviews and stuff. Anyway, so the what's going on, and I was thinking, so there's that whole thing with Helen and her tying in, and it's that old. You go somewhere new and then you meet a local who says, "Oh, there's something bad going on" or whatever, and then they sort of, and how does that all fit in? And then I was like, okay, in retrospect, having seen that, I do understand how the pieces fit together. But as it happened at the moment, in the end, I was just more confused and sort of a bit, they've done that, have they? I was like, I was actually quite enjoying where it was going, and then it was now they've decided to actually go, no, actually it's not that, it's something different. But there's some really nicely shot stuff. There's some good scenes.
There is.
It's all very familiar.
I wish it had just bought in more into that sort of like that folk horror element.
Yeah.
Instead of just going,
Which is the same,
Yeah.
which it does to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it does kind of go the full hog, but then sort of goes.
Goes really joke.
Does a little bit of an M. Night Shyamalan-y kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the thing. You get the rug. You're building this supernatural element, and then it's just swiped away.
The damp squib, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just. Oh, right, is that it? Okay. Well,
that's literally how I felt. My wife sort of went, goes, "Oh, how did it end?" Because he'd gone to bed, and I said, "Oh, bloody hell."
That's what anyway. I mean. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind a decent rug pull, but it just like Rich said, it invalidates more or less everything that's come before, and I'd have to go back, watch it again just to see if it does fit. And to be honest, can't really be asked doing that.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? It's a one shot. On that note, how are we going to score this? I'll kick off with this one. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. So, Steve?
Yeah, I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
And I'm going to give it a 6. So I think it's a very, it's a good quality production, well made, touches all the conventions and stuff. It's just it loses points for those things that we've been talking about. It would have been a 7 I think it would have been a 7 if it weren't for that ending. I think.
It's handsomely shot, but I can't see myself watching this again, which is why it's a 6.
Yeah.
So there you go. Okay, 3 6s for The Twin. It's on Shudder and it's also out on DVD. Go check it out. Our next review is Painted in Blood. Malik, an aspiring painter, takes a job as a security guard at an art museum to make some extra cash. However, things quickly become terrifying when the figure inside one of the paintings starts speaking to him. There's been a few good horror films linking sort of art and horror together. What was that one, Steve? Can you remember Something Chainsaw that was on Netflix?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the one?
The one with Jake Gyllenhaal.
That's, I can't remember what it's called now. Can you remember it?
Velvet Buzzsaw.
Velvet.
That's it. Yeah, Velvet Buzzsaw.
Velvet Buzzsaw. So there was that. There was also The Devil's Candy, which is very good. Bliss was another one about a young female artist who takes this experimental psychotropic drug. That was quite full on, that one. I'm pretty sure there's another one which I'm just skipping in my head at the moment, but this sort of falls into that, this idea of like sort of suffering for your art, sacrificing yourself for your art. That sort of element sort of comes through. I did enjoy this, I must admit. I did sort of get a thrill out of it. How about you, Steve? What do you make of this one?
Yeah, when it started, I wasn't really expecting much, to be fair. I mean, it's obviously like micro budget. From reading about it, it's the wrote it, directed it, edited it.
Yeah, sorry. Aaron Muertos, he did just about everything behind the scenes from the looks of it.
Yeah. And some of the acting's a little bit ropey, especially like roommate, the guy's roommate or whatever. But it's actually quite a compelling story. I'm not one of these, obviously, arty-farty, it's a picture, it looks nice, that's all I care about, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what annoyed me about that Velvet Buzzsaw. I couldn't get into that at all. But this, it was just, one bloke trying to create his art and being roped into, what's gone on in the past and stuff. And I thought the actual monster design was actually quite good as well for what limited budget they must have had. And the effects are quite good. And it was actually quite an intriguing story. I did enjoy it. Wasn't expecting to, but did like it. you know.
I did like the way so Malik is sort of egged on, the way he's manipulated as well. At first he's kind of inspired by this painting and sort of comes up with his own, but then he's writing things like amateur and sort of plagiarist all over his work. It's like, no, do something original, do something more. I did like that. Rich, how did you get on with Painted in Blood?
Yeah, I quite liked it actually. Although it's fairly apparent that it's like quite micro budget, I think it uses its limitations very well. It's not the flashiest looking film, but it's got, you don't think about too much when you're watching it. There's only like 3 or 4 people in it.
Yeah,
it's like basically 1 or 2 locations. It's like the house and the gallery place.
Yeah,
and say the horror scenes, which are quite ambitious. They do that thing where the head sort of shakes around and the sort of distortions and stuff. They add in that kind of stuff. But the film that sort of came to mind, well, there were a couple of films that came to mind, but another sort of art one that was the one that came to mind for me was Bucket of Blood.
Yeah, I was literally I was kind of mentioning that just a minute ago. Yeah, Roger Corman.
I never saw the original Roger Corman one, but I did see the Anthony Michael Hall mid-90s TV remake.
I was thinking about the earlier one.
Yeah. Well, I think they're both basically the same, but basically the same storyline. But also, the whole kind of insidious, seduction of the character and sort of the change of their personality. We've seen that in all sorts of, Christine in a way, and and
Ghostbusters 2.
Well, Ghostbusters 2 obviously came to mind, definitely. Vigo and everything. But the thing that actually, the film that mainly came to mind in terms of the way the plot unfolds was Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
All right.
Because the way, because that's kind of it's kind of different to most of the other Elm Street movies, and it's kind of about a possession. It's, Freddy sort of getting into this kid's head and sort of making him commit murders and stuff, and that's kind of what's happening here. It's not about him committing murders so much, but he is sort of taking him down a sort of dark path. And there's that, it's and I think even the creature in that, it's got that kind of Clive Barker-ish kind of.
It has, yeah. It looks like it's escaped from the box,
it definitely looks
like a Cenobite
sort of Cenobite, yeah. But I think in terms of the overall kind of feel, even stuff like Candyman, which I think was also originally based on a Clive Barker story, if I'm not mistaken, was so there's those sort of elements there. So I think, and I really liked I thought the cast did quite well. The young guy was reminding me of. I'm not sure who the actor is who's in things like Nope and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
recently.
Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah, so he reminded me a little bit of him. The woman playing the gallery owner. She was you always thought that something was going to twist with her, but it seemed like actually she was pretty genuine the whole time. And there's some fun, and there's the stuff with the roommate, and there's some developments there which I wasn't expecting. And the director, I haven't, Aaron Muertos, I've seen you've got quite a long catalogue, but this actually sort of looks a bit different to most of what he's done. I mean, he does things like Clowntergeist, Curse of the Nun, American Hunt, sort of cash-in kind of movies. Yeah. And this is sort of something seems a bit more of a standalone, but he also did a film called The Alpha Test, which I've been wanting to, I think I've got it on my watch list.
He was one of the producers of Death Ranch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'd say he's got quite an extensive filmography. He's got the Octo games coming up soon. I think that's a Squid Game cash in. But the Alpha Test looks really interesting. That's on Freevee. I think I've got that on my list to watch because I'm quite curious about that one. But also looks quite low budget, but seems to sort of use its idea as well. I think it's got the same actress from the gallery. I think she's in that movie. So I did. This was a bit different than I was expecting, but also a bit more. It kind of overcame certain limitations very well, I thought.
Yeah. So this guy he edited Werewolf Castle as well. So he's obviously got connections with Charlie Steeds, who's the director of both Death Ranch and that one. So that's really cool. Yeah, awesome, cool. Okay, scores on this one. I think this is definitely a 7. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, 7.
And Rich?
I'm just going to go a little bit lower on a 6.
Just managing expectations a little bit. All right, that's 2 7s and a 6 for Painted in Blood. Go check it out. Our next review is Shot in the Dark. 2 years ago, William Langston made a mistake that would affect the course of his life. Now, with a killer loose in his hometown and his circle of friends falling away one at a time, William faces the greatest fears as well as his own mortality. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch this apart from the first couple of minutes. So, Steve, how was Shot in the Dark?
Pretty grim, to be fair. It's not when it starts out, it's not what you think it's going to be. It kind of reminded me of the one we watched last week, Ash and Dust, was it?
Oh yeah, Cold Vengeance, as it's known in the UK.
Yeah. At the beginning for the first couple of minutes, and then it kind of focuses on people going missing in this town. And then it swings to like a Silence of the Lambs type thing. It really jumps all over the place tonally. But does it in quite an interesting way. And there's, again, a slight twist in it. About halfway, 3/4 of the way through. And you're like, which you do not see coming from a mile off. And it just gets darker and darker and grimmer and grimmer, and even the ending's quite bleak and not what you'd expect as well. But then it has these little moments of flashbacks of, good times and nice happy parts and stuff like that. So that's quite interesting. Really well shot, especially the last third. I thought it was really well done. And yeah, that twist is a very, very good killer twist, to be fair.
Cool. Yeah, I knew I was going to be interested in this as soon as I saw the logo for Raven Banner, who they're just one of my favorite film labels because of the sorts of things they put out. But Rich, how did you get on with Shot in the Dark?
Yeah, it's like Steve said, it's dark. It's a very serious movie, and it really you do need to pay attention. It is it's I say non-linear, but it's basically it's taking place over a couple of days, I think, and it jumps to and fro between the situation as it's one of the characters finds himself and what was happening earlier, and as Steve was saying, goes further back as well, sort of referencing a relationship. There's a lot of stuff to do with the lead character's relationship. So it was I did like it. I thought it was quite interesting. I feel like I've seen that kind of someone is in a perilous situation, flat, and there's lots of flashbacks kind of happening, kind of thing.
You have no idea, mate. You have no idea after what me and Steve had to watch last week.
Oh, so I don't really have a huge amount to it's. I don't know. It's kind of it. It didn't make a huge impression on me, but it is. If you're interested in more, it's a horror movie, but it's more of a thriller. I think it's much more of a thriller than a horror movie.
Sort of like procedural kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that what was confusing me a bit was, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but at the beginning, doesn't it say it's based on a true story? Or was it just me that misunderstood that? Because it seems like it's not, but it was like it was doing this intro. It was possibly just scene setting for the story.
Yeah,
But I took it as real. It was saying in 1998.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was right at the beginning. It's like in media res, but in text form. It was really annoying.
Yeah.
It was really annoying.
It was one of those things where they tell you, okay, what happened, and this is
and then they timestamp every scene basically, I guess, and sort of say, well, this happened at this time, and this happened at that time later on, and it's all within that sort of 2-day period. So you kind of know what it's going to build up to, and that's annoying. It really is. But there you go.
Yeah, but I didn't say the setup sort of confused me a little bit, because I was thinking, oh, that's a really interesting setup. Is that a real thing that happened? But then I think I was thinking too much about that as the plot was going on, thinking this can't be real. Surely it wasn't. But maybe that was just me sort of bringing too much into it myself. I think if you watch it as like a, not Fargo, but if you this sort of like crime, this strange thing that happened, whereas I took and the story unfolded, whereas I think what I took it as was, this was a thing that happened, and here is a speculation of what that was, and I was just and that was confusing me as I was going along. So I think that's my fault as the viewer, not catching the drift of the film in quite the way I was meant to, and I think that possibly affected it. But and the whole, and all the sort of tied to a chair kind of stuff, I feel I didn't get much out of that, but I was quite curious about where it was going. What was the point the film was trying to make, and where was it going, and stuff. So I didn't dislike it, but I didn't connect with it a huge amount. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So how are you going to score this one, Steve?
I'm torn between a 6. I'll go a 6, a high 6, but yeah, still a 6, because it's better than the twin, but not as good.
Okay.
As the other one. So yeah, still a 6.
And Rich.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of on the fence with this one, so I'm going to go 5.
All right. Okay, interesting. 5 and a 6 for not a shot in the dark. A 5 and a 6 for Shot in the Dark. Our next review is The Unburied. This is an Argentinian film. The father of a family and role model for many orphan kids in a small town suddenly dies. One of his sons, who lives in another town, has to come back and deal with the troubles of his past and present. Steve, this is a weird film. It is a very strange film indeed. So this guy dies. He has a heart attack mid-meal. And the feeders go out to the extended family, including this guy Maximilian, who's now a psychiatrist in a different town, and he's sort of called back saying, your foster dad, or the father of this orphanage has died. You now have to come back, and because we have to sort out the heritage and the will and that sort of thing. So he comes back, and it's like, I don't know how much time has passed, but he comes back and he's horrified to find that his dad's body is still sat in the same chair he died in, up in his room, with all the food still laid out that he was eating. And he's like, what the fuck? Why haven't you buried him? Why isn't he in a coffin, for God's sake? And everyone's sort of going, no, we can't do that until we've sorted out the issue of his heritage and sort of the will and stuff. And all the sort of people you would expect to listen to reason, such as the local priest, the police, his other brothers, even his even his girlfriend who he meets, none of them want to know. It's like, no, this is perfectly normal for where, for these parts, don't worry about it. But he's sort of horrified by the whole situation. And it sort of builds up to this sort of very, very strange ending where he suddenly realizes things from his past. He gets sort of flashbacks of sort of things that he had done as a teenager, and the sort of his memories and the present day start blurring together, and this sort of thing. And the ending, there's a touch of I don't know if you've seen the film Hereditary.
Yeah.
But it kind of heads in that sort of direction, which is very interesting. The
So it
only
makes no
thing,
sense at all then. Sorry.
a little, it makes a little. No, it does make sense. But the weird, one of the weird things in the film is the father figure. He wears this bracelet which is made up of human teeth on his wrist, and you realise that so the various people Maximilian meets around town, and these people, they're all wearing bracelets with a tooth embedded in it. It's just sort of to show that they're all sort of linked together basically. But it's freaking weird. There is a very distressing segment in the film where it turns out his brother works he runs the local slaughterhouse, and there's this really grim sequence where you're basically seeing recently slaughtered animals. I think you see like at least one cow getting bolted in the head. It's like, great, this is going to go down well. So
I mean, to be fair, that sounds quite surprising to me. But...
I'm surprised it's got through.
Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised that's got through the certification. But there you go. But it is an interesting film. It is very well shot. It has got this sort of very bizarre sort of occult kind of element to it. I did enjoy this, I must admit. Yeah, very, very weird.
I only saw the first 20 minutes or first part, and I was a little bit thrown because he's written this book, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he says, I wrote this based on my experiences in the orphanage or whatever. And then they get the news, oh, your father died. And I was thinking, so was he in an orphanage or was he not?
They all called him the father. He was the father of the orphanage. He ran the orphanage, this guy.
Oh.
And he was, everyone was considered, a family, basically.
I see. Okay,
so all the people
I was wondering if it was something like that.
Yeah. So all the people you see are his brothers, and all people who were in the orphanage with him.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Okay.
So it looks like you probably switched off just before the slaughterhouse bit.
Yeah, he just got to. He'd arrived at the slaughterhouse and he was talking to.
Yeah, that was a good. That was a good call. That was a call to end it there. Either that, I'll skip it forward a few minutes. I mean, I did.
It wasn't because I didn't. It wasn't because I didn't want to keep watching. It was just circumstantially I couldn't continue.
But of all the places to stop, that's probably the best bit. But there's this really grotesque element to it because you got this corpse. It's bloated. It's its hands are blackened and it's really, really freaky looking, and like one of the sons is like stroking its hair and kissing his forehead, and it's like when he's like, yeah, God, it's sort of really gross. So it's not going to be for everyone, but it is, if you like a decent occultish sort of kind of story, I really did like this, I must admit.
Does it go in a sort of Texas Chainsaw-ish direction? Because
the
atmosphere I was getting from when when he travels back to that rural sort of area, I was thinking it did, especially with the slaughterhouse kind of element, it was making me think of that.
It's more, I kind of, it's almost like Rosemary's Baby or something like that in a way. In that, you got this person who, you got this person who's in this sort of very bizarre and grotesque situation, and every person he turns to sort of like try and see common sense, the people you would rely on to see common sense, are the ones who sort of go, it's normal. The local priest doesn't seem to care. The local, this local sheriff, he sort of shrugs his shoulders a bit, going, "Don't worry about it. It'll all get sorted out." Yeah,
So it's like Wicker Man-ish sort of.
yeah, exactly. That sort of thing. You know, you've got all these people involved, and even this woman he starts a relationship with because they used to know each other back in the orphanage as well. You know, she's exactly the same, just sort of kind of shrugs her shoulders a bit. So he's sort of stuck in this situation, and as I was saying to Steve, he starts to remember things which have been blocked out of his memory for like the last sort of 25 years, but it starts coming back in, and it is sort of bleeds into the present, which is in a sort of interesting way. So yeah, it is an interesting film for sure, and that's why I'm scoring this one a 7 out of 10. So go check it out. I think you might find this under the title "The Unburied Corpse" or "The Unburied."
Is it Argentinian?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's all in Spanish, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Our short shot this week is The River. Sarah retreats to the river to escape family drama, but discovers something far more disturbing lurks under the water. Okay, interesting short, this one. It starts off with this this poor woman, Sarah, who's found out her husband has cheated on her with her best mate, which is
Sister.
Is it a sister? Even worse. Jesus. And has sort of like decided to go kayaking up the river to escape, and things happen. Steve, how did he get on with The River?
I didn't like this, I'll be honest with you. It reminded me of The Mighty Boosh. She sets off down the canal and down the river, sorry, and you see the graffiti. Was it Jenny Green Lips or something like that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Green teeth. Yeah.
Jenny Green Teeth. Sorry, and I was thinking, this is going to be something like old Greg from The Mighty Boosh.
Weird.
And it was. That's what it just reminded me of. I just expected, you see the bit where the head's popping up and it's just up to the nose out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept expecting it to turn around and say, "Do you want some Baileys?" or something like that. Honestly,
I've not seen it, but it's from what you're saying, it just sounds quite funny.
I love it. It's hilarious. But yeah, it didn't do anything for me at all, and I didn't find it at all scary. I don't think it built any tension. Even the little kid at the end was annoying. It just did nothing for me whatsoever at all. I just couldn't get old Greg out of my head. I really couldn't.
Rich, how did you get on with this one?
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it's the latest video film to appear on the Super Freak Media channel on YouTube. I've been subscribed for a while, but I confess I haven't actually watched any of his this director Liam Banks's films until now. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. I do think the sort of the drama stuff at the beginning goes on perhaps a bit too long, because it doesn't really have that much impact as the film unfolds. It's kind of setting up a certain state, situation,
state of mind sort of thing, yeah.
But it's not really consequential, or at least it didn't feel consequential to me. So it's kind of explained why she was out there on her own, but it didn't have anything more than that, really. So I think if that could have been a bit brilliant. It's only about 15 minutes long, but so you've got all this setup, and I thought it was really nicely shot. The canal location was quite. This is Liam Banks is a filmmaker in the Midlands, so it's all shot around there. I think he's from Nottingham. And the canal stuff looked really nice. I was interested, the graffiti bit that you were referring to, I'm very curious how they did that, whether that's like a CG post-production kind of thing they put in. I presume it must be, because or they'd temporarily put something up.
Promise to paint over it afterwards.
Yeah, I thought that was quite well done, because again, that sort of establishes the environment and sets up this, there's this local legendy kind of thing. And when the stuff starts happening, I thought that was, it's obviously made in a really low budget, but I thought it worked quite well for me. And there's a very heavy sort of tip of the hat to the Friday the 13th, or the first Friday the 13th, which I quite enjoyed. And I think there's some bit ropey creature stuff maybe at the end, but it's quite fun. I just thought it was quite interesting and showed a lot of promise, and it does make me want to see more of what Super Freak Media and Liam Banks have done. I mean, they've got he's made a whole bunch of stuff, and it's all got I don't know if he does the posters himself or whatever, but he's got an eye for marketing, and the poster. I mean, the poster for The River is really sort of quite eye-catching and stuff. And there's some other films, and all the thumbnails are really sort of interesting looking. So I will definitely be checking out some of that. But Mike, what did you think?
It was all right. Yeah, I must admit, I sort of rushed watching it. I wasn't really sort of settled. But what I saw, I thought was pretty decent. It was very well shot, good locations. I didn't really sort of get the ending very much, but again, couldn't really sort of would have preferred to sort of sit down with it properly.
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought also the sort of protagonist, played by Sarah Wynn-Cordes. It's quite unusual to see a female protagonist, in her situation, sort of an older woman, sort of middle-aged woman. Yeah, rather than say you would usually, like in the
middle-aged, over 30 is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Middle-aged for Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. It was against type to a certain degree, which sort of made it sound a bit like Painted in Blood, which I don't think we referenced it, but the lead is an African American boy.
Yes,
and which sort of the casting sort of stands out because it's slightly different to what you're used to, and I think in that case that sort of made the film sort of feel a bit more novel. It wasn't about a 20-something or something, which a lot of these things usually are. It's like, oh, there's something scary in the cupboard, kind of thing, or whatever. But yeah, so I thought the casting were quite. The boy, okay, little annoying boy at the riverside. Was he a relative or something? Possibly, I don't know. But I was like, I didn't mind that. It was sort of, but yeah, I thought overall. I mean, if I recall correctly, there's some nice sort of overhead shots as well. I know that sort of thing's a bit easier to do, but you got a sense of the location and it being a real location, and the sort of it had some real production value despite clearly having not really much budget. And I think in part that's due to the skill of the filmmakers, but also the availability and the affordability of some equipment that can give a real sheen to a production.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we do not score the shorts, but we certainly recommend you check them out, and you will find a link to this one in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is John Carpenter presents Vampires, Los Muertos. A vampire hunter and a priest fight a band of the Walking Dead in Mexico. I don't know why they call them the Walking Dead, the vampires. What did you say, vampires? Anyway, sequel in name only, really, to John Carpenter's Vampires movie. This is produced by Carpenter, directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, and stars none other than John Bon Jovi in the lead role. How was John Bon Jovi for you, Steve?
He was all right. It could do with a bigger budget, but I think what they do with what they've got, they do quite well. Like the original, I like the fact that it's not CGI. It's practical in camera effects, which still I think works quite well. It's very similar to the original, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got the member of the team, you know, getting the team together.
Yeah.
Woman.
One of them gets visions.
Yeah, one of them's slightly going to become a vampire. One of them becomes a vampire, you know, type thing. And it's interesting to have a female villain, to be fair, which
played by Ali Jova, who was quite big, not big, but you know, she was very, you know, prevalent at the time. You know, she'd appeared in quite a lot of stuff like Blade, and she sort of appeared all over the place. Really, she had I think she was a model. I might be wrong there, but she's got a very particular look, and I think she's quite a novel. She's quite an interesting, you know, one casting, but also, you know, as in the antagonist and what she's trying to do and stuff. I thought she was quite interesting.
Yeah. And what really surprised me was Diego Luna showing up in what must have been a very early role for him.
Yeah, he's currently, you know, his Andor series is kind of a big thing at the moment, isn't it? So he's kind of coming about. Well, age. I mean, this film shows how long he's been around. I mean, this was 20 years ago. And I still think of him as that kind of young kid, but obviously he's a long way from that now. But
did he play that kid then? You know, the sort of the trainee kid. Was that him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Rich, what are your thoughts on Los Muertos?
Oh, I love this. Yeah, I thought. I mean, in terms of, you go back to you know, when DTV sequels were kind of blowing up, you know, the left, right, and center. This was kind of one of the big ones. I mean, 10 years into it, you know, because Darkman and stuff, early 90s, that kind of thing. So this is 2001, 2002 when this came out. But you know, you compare it to stuff now. I mean, it's got a budget. I mean, it feels like a big, apart from the casting.
It's got a budget. It's got sets. It's got a cast.
It's got a budget. It's got sets. It's got locations.
It's got proper music,
visual effects. The writer and director is, you know, a reasonably big director, Tommy Lee Wallace, who started his directorial career started with Halloween 3. And this to date was the last film that he did. So it's I love the fact that he's kind of bookended his career with these John Carpenter projects, you know, sequel projects, and the fact. So that's a mark of quality. The fact that he's the writer and director. The K&B are in doing the visual effects, you know, special effects work and stuff, which some of it's not amazing, but I think in part some of that's due to the time and perhaps some of the limitations, but there's a lot of practical stuff in there. The location looks really good. The John Bon Jovi thing is kind of the standout. It just seems so random. I mean, how do you go from James Woods to John Bon Jovi? I just don't get the through line of thought there. But he's fine, and he's got a surfboard full of weapons, which they don't make enough of that in the movie, in my opinion. I just love when that comes out, and then they kind of put it away and then they don't mention it again. But he's introduced with this like Dirty Harry kind of stake gun, which I thought was quite cool, and then they kind of build it, and then that kind of element goes away as the team stuff comes together and the real plot unfolds from that point. But you know, they're trying to play it like John Bon Jovi is a vampire hunting Dirty Harry, which just doesn't really work.
That's the bit for me that sort of stuck. It's clearly the character was written for someone who's a lot more grizzled than babyface John Bon Jovi.
Yeah. He's too handsome for it, isn't he? I mean, it just doesn't quite work. You need someone a bit more, like say,
craggy. You know, you need.
Imagine if you go back to
someone. You know,
go back to Halloween. Yeah. Imagine Tom Atkins.
Well, yeah, exactly.
How cool would that have been?
Yeah, Josh Brolin, someone like that would have been great in the role. You know.
But the rest of the cast is really. I mean, you've got Natasha Gregson Wagner. Sorry, in this she's just Natasha Wagner. In there, and also say Diego Luna you've mentioned. I really like Christian De La Fuente. He just kind of brings a kind of Jean-Claude Van Damme kind of element to it. Well, unfortunately, he doesn't do any action or whatever, but he's kind of dressed up as the priest,
Yeah.
And you can just tell he's like ripped underneath it. He's like, he looks enormous, but he's kind of, it's all hidden under this big outfit. And say Arlie Jover, who I mentioned, the cast's just really good. I think it's a lot of fun. It feels like it's like what the DTV sequels used to be, which was it's going to be made to theatrical standards. You're just not going to get quite the level of big stars. You're going to get some unconventional casting. And that was the thing that made stand out sort of separately to, I mean, you go back to the original one, apart from James Woods, the first one was very B-movie-ish itself, because it had blooming Daniel Baldwin and Thomas Ian Griffith was the villain.
Yep.
And you couldn't get better B-movie credentials than that. I mean, I didn't love the first one, to be honest. I was a little bit disappointed.
I do want to revisit then goes downhill.
Yeah. I do prefer this one. I think this one's more fun of the two, but I will be going back and watching the first one to sort of reevaluate that. I will say both of them are a lot better than the third one, although I did have fun with the third one, which has got more of a Chinese vampires kind of theme going on in it, so it sort of takes it in a different direction.
Is that the turning?
Yes, which I think really is tenuously connected. It's like this one, I think.
I think they refer to the other, James Woods team at some point.
I think they do in this, but that's about it. And you wouldn't even. I mean, I was even questioning whether it even was part of the series because it just didn't seem to fit, but. Apparently so. It's out in box sets and stuff and whatever. So, that's but anyway, they're all quite interesting. They're all very different, but I think this is the standout for me. And there's some interesting ideas. Like the thing where it all slows down, and Arlie Jover's vampire comes in and just sort of slashes everyone in like fraction, in bullet time basically. And I don't think that scene quite works. Again, this might be budget limitations, but that doesn't quite work as well as you'd like it to. It's sort of it's a good idea, but I don't think it quite came off. But I do love the fact that Bon Jovi's character Derek, I think his name is, and he goes into the bathroom, he goes into the toilets, and then he comes back and everyone's been massacred. And then he just sort of legs it, which I thought was that's pretty good. And I mean, the whole stuff with the team and meeting, he happens to, the meet cute or whatever. He happens to meet this vampire sort of girl, far too quickly and easily. And then they sort of get on the road together, and there's this whole thing about she's been bitten, but she's able to suppress it with these drugs. Which they just mention as like a random plot device thing. It's like where did they don't make much of that at all.
I suppose this goes back to the original, isn't it, with Daniel Baldwin's character being bitten and it's sort of between being in that sort of like halfway sort of space. Even in Day Shift, we got that sort of character who's like
Day Shift very much did come to mind when I was watching this. As like, I mean, it doesn't have quite the level of the humor, but there is humor in this, and I was thinking this is kind of like a Day Shift of its time in a way, because it leans into the whole their vampire hunters. I mean, they don't do the
doing it for money, aren't they? Basically, it's all
it's bounty hunter-ish kind of. They don't do the when they go into the union, they don't do a union stuff or anything, but that it is very much a working job kind of thing, and there's some definite parallels there.
Well, the first one they were like getting orders from the Vatican. Remember rightly? I mean, it's been years since I've seen it, so.
But this is sort of more
this one is kind of and they kind of reference, who have we been paid by? We're not sure, and they never actually even go into it. I mean, that's another kind of plot thread. They kind of just sort of set who got the ball rolling, and that I didn't really quite catch that, whether that got revealed and I just missed it. But they kind of just go for we're going to get the team together, and we're going to end up in a situation where the locals are in peril, and we've got to save the town, kind of, and and take them out. And that's all quite well done. The day walking kind of stuff is quite fun. The vampire kills you know, the bursting into flames and stuff. They got people on fire, and you know, lots of great sort of visual effects. The action scenes I thought were really well done, which I think was actually, I can't remember who did the action now that I was going to say, but I was thinking of a different film. But I thought the action was quite well handled. I mean, John Bon Jovi's not an action hero in this, but he's pretty close. I mean, it's about as I don't recall him. I mean, he's done a few he was acting quite a lot around this time. But he was doing more dramas.
Yeah, always around him.
Which one?
U571.
Oh, yes, of course he was in that. Yeah, so he's done quite a lot, but I don't think he's ever had sort of a lead, sort of tough guy role.
No,
quite like this. But unfortunately, his character is not that able to sell that toughness that he's supposed to have. He's as you say, he's a bit too gentle and handsome for it. But his casting does bring a lot to the movie. I mean, it's just quite fun, and not in a bad way. It's not like, oh my god, it's John Bon Jovi. He does a good job. He's fine. But it's just funny that it's John Bon Jovi being cast in this in the same way that in the same way that like Snoop Dogg in Day Shift.
Yeah.
It's not kind of the casting you would expect, but it's just kind of fun and you go with it. It's like and I mean in Day Shift, Snoop Dogg worked really, really well, but that's a different thing. But there's this kind of similarity. So yeah, I'm very fond of this one. I really enjoyed. I hadn't seen it for like 15-20 years, so
I had never seen it. No, I must admit. So,
but were you aware of it? Was it?
Oh yeah, I was aware of it. But
you'd come across it.
I hadn't really stuck around to it. All right, so we don't score the throwbacks, but we do want you to check them out. This is currently available on Freevee, the free-to-view service as part of Amazon.
I didn't get any adverts while I was watching it.
I must admit, I didn't either.
No, I didn't.
Actually, I was quite surprised.
No. But that was weird.
After it, I did go and watch because there's a few related films. So Ghosts of Mars is on there as well. So I started watching that, and that one has the ad breaks kicking in much more frequently. So I don't know if they just made a mistake on this one, but yeah, that was pretty cool. So I did watch it completely for free, no adverts to worry about.
Nobody tell them.
Nobody tell them. Just watch it quickly before they change it.
Yeah. So there you go. All right, then that is the end of this week's show. So thank you for listening. Thank you to Rich and Steve for joining me talking about these films. I will be checking out A Shot in the Dark hopefully in the next couple of days, just to sort of for my own edification, shall we say. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also, we have the Short Shots, which also has its own Twitter page where Rich puts a new short every evening. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.